Hello. Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome to Arduino EDUvision's live episode number 7. Hope you all are doing well. Yes, and of course, today I'm Roxana, and today I have my great colleagues,
Melissa.
Teres and Melissa. Hello, guys. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good, thanks. So for those that haven't seen us before, we would like to tell you a little bit more about what we do at Arduino and where we are from. So, Melissa, could you tell us what you do at Arduino?
Yes, so I work in the content team at Arduino, mainly with the educational kits. So I create content for our different Arduino education kits, also a lot of with the teacher guides that we have for our different kits. And I come from Finland.
Yeah, and Teres?
I work with educational support. So part of my job is to work with the support system that we have. But I also help teachers with their educational products and these
That's
things.
nice.
Yep. What about you, Rob?
And yes, I work with our educational partners, like doing training, and I am from Mexico City. So again, welcome everyone, and please let us know on the chat where are you from and what you do, and if you're a teacher or a parent or student. So please let us know. We would like to know more about you guys. So write on the chat.
Yes, and also if you can comment if this is your first time watching the Arduino EDUvision live.
Exactly. How did you find us? And that's also nice to know. Like, where do you find Arduino EDUvision? So yes, just comment there.
Is this the first time you're watching?
Exactly. And also, again, like Teres mentioned, if this is the first time you join, this is a show made for educators and parents and students to support and keep learning and studying from home. So we always have this show every Thursday at 4 Central European Time. But also we have another show called Bar Arduino, which is more for makers, and you are more welcome to join that. And it's hosted by Massimo Banzi, one of our Arduino founders, and also Benedetta. She's also an educator and an engineer. And our Bar Arduino is on Tuesdays at 9 p.m. So you're more than welcome also to follow that show. Another thing, if you're not watching this episode live, you can watch the recording later on. And if you have any comment, any question, you can post it on the comment section. And then the next session, we're going to answer all the questions you have. Right?
Yes,
Right.
and we try to keep up with the chat, of course, and try to answer your questions during the live. But if there's something that we miss, we also try to answer then at the beginning of the next episode, of course.
Exactly. So people are saying how they find us. So someone on Facebook, other ones from YouTube. That's nice.
Yeah, it seems we have also a lot of students. There's Audrey, I'm a student. Also Space Boy, 15 years old student from Germany.
Nice. So a teacher, a STEM teacher. Nice. Welcome you all, and thank you for joining today.
Yeah, there's a first time viewer, so welcome.
Yeah, so if this is the first time you join, we expect a lot of questions, guys. So don't be shy and just type any questions you may have.
Yeah, join the discussion.
Exactly. So during the live, we will, of course, put in the comments that you have there and the questions, and Melissa, Teres, and also our guest and myself will going to answer. So on the chat also, you will get the answers. Okay, Norway. Oh, she saw a post on Twitter. Nice. And also a teacher for teaching Arduino at bachelor level. Welcome, Ivan, and thank you for joining.
We hope we can inspire you all to teach using Arduino at home.
Definitely. So, what else do we have today?
Today we will have two special guests. One of them is Nathalie Duponsel. She is a researcher at Concordia University, and she will talk about let's see, sorry. We'll talk about the power of maker education because she also teaches making in schools. The other guest is Maurizio Branca, and also his family will join, I've heard. So Maurizio is a parent that uses the student kits to teach at home, but he's also our coworker.
Nice. Super nice to guest. So it will be super interesting learning and experience from a family, from a parent. So
definitely. And last week we announced that our last live session will be on June the 25th, but we will be back after the summer. So we have now 2 more episodes with guests, articles, video tutorials, and of course quizzes. So you have still 2 weeks to join the discussion, and then we have a summer break. But even if we have the summer break, it's fine because still we're going to continue posting the starter kit tutorials every week. So 1 video every week. And then also we're going to publish new articles on our remote learning site. And I can actually show you some of the things here that we have added now. So here, remember, you can find the live sessions from here. You can sign up for the live sessions and you will always get a notification and you don't miss the live, so you can join the discussion. Here you can find the video tutorials. Today we posted a new video for the project number 9. It's the motorized pinwheel. I can show you a clip.
Hi, I'm Therese, and today I'll show you how to create a pinwheel that spins with the power of a motor. In this project, we will introduce some new...
So you can follow Therese's example and learn how to create the project number 9. And actually, I think, Therese, you have the project there with you, do you?
I do have the project here. Let me take it.
Yeah, so you can explain a bit what components you use and what you learn from this project.
Let's see if I can get it up here. Well, this week's episode, we are using a DC motor for the first time in the starter kit. And we will teach you what type of components you need to use together with the DC motor for it to work properly. And you will create one of these, a motorized pinwheel. So the kit comes with this nice cardboard, but you can also create your own to see which colors that blends in what way. So it's really nice and customizable. And I'm pressing a button here for the pinwheel to spin. So
yeah, and you can create a bigger one if you want, like a really small one or a really huge one, trying to make who can make the biggest one. And if you follow our tutorials and if you create the projects from starter kit, or if you create any other Arduino projects, please share them using the hashtag Arduino at home. Oh, there's a question. Are the electronic parts included in the student set? So this is the starter kit, and all the components that you need to go through the projects are included.
So there are
everything that Therese showed is included in the kit.
Exactly. So there, I don't know if you're mentioning the student kit or the starter kit. So this is the starter kit, but the student kit, which is for younger students, also has a lot of these components. It doesn't have a DC motor, but it has a servo motor.
Yeah. So, and to go through the content and the student kit, you have all the electronic components that you need.
Exactly.
Yeah. And if you have used the hashtag Arduino at home and social media, we have collected now a few of them. So I'm going to show you now 3 different projects that I found from Instagram and Twitter. So here's the first one where there's 6 buttons. It looks kind of simple. There's Arduino Uno, 6 buttons, and together with processing, she made this beautiful video.
Cool.
Wow.
So for you who don't know, processing is like a graphical interface that you can use together with Arduino to kind of visualize what your components are doing. You can create games if you don't have, for example, a LCD screen.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's really cool.
And then there's another project that we can see also. This is a bit based on the starter kit project, I think number 11, where you learn to use a LCD screen. But here you have, he has created a calculator using the screen. So you have these components and then you can press like a basic calculator.
Oh, wow.
But that's more fun doing your own.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, that we could create this based on when we're creating the video for the project where we learn to use the screen. We could actually make from a paper. We could make our own calculator using different buttons. So
Yeah.
maybe we should try that in a few weeks.
Yeah,
and then we can share it here. Yeah, definitely.
For sure.
Yeah, and then in Twitter, there were a lot of projects, but here I found two kind of cute robots. There's a one they're using the ultrasonic sensors, and then another one made with 3D printing. So if you're building your own Arduino project at home, please share them using the hashtag Arduino at home, or then you can also send them using the contact form on our remote learning site if you don't have a social media account, for example.
Exactly. So we have here some questions.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there different student kits for each of the projects in the course, or one kit for all of the projects? So in general, we have been talking about two different kits. One is the student kit and one is the starter kit. Both of these are individual kits with multiple projects. So the starter kit, which was like this that I was showing, it has 15 projects. So all of the components for the 15 projects are there. And then the student kit, I think, has nine
lessons and two
projects. And all of the components are there for those lessons and projects as well.
Yeah.
Yes, you don't need to find anything else, right? Everything is.
No, it also comes with a multimeter.
Exactly.
So the students can learn about electrical measurements.
And both of the kits, they have the electronic components, but they also have the content. So they explain you through the project. So they have the step-by-step guidance, how to wire everything, how to program, and also kind of like explaining some of the electrical theory and those kind of things.
Exactly. So I see a lot of comments of people saying, how can I learn Arduino? And I would definitely recommend one of these two kits to start with because they are for beginners.
For starting, exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, it doesn't matter if you don't have any previous experience, because everything is step by step. So
yes,
no worries about that.
Should we have our first guest?
Of course.
Okay, let me introduce her. So our first guest today is Nathalie Duponsel. She's a doctoral candidate in educational technology at University of Concordia in Canada. She is a researcher, instructor, and a certified teacher. So welcome, Nathalie. I'm going to add you to the live.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining. It's great to have you here. I'm really looking forward. We posted on our remote learning site an interview or article where you answered some of the questions. So
Great.
I read it, and I'm really eager to have some more questions.
Wow, awesome.
But for our audience, could you start with telling us a bit about yourself? What do you do at the Concordia University, for example?
Sure. Well, I'm a PhD student, so a lot of what I do there revolves around research and the research that I'm doing. And but we're really involved with the community in the type of research that we do. For instance, we have 2 makerspaces. We have one at the university, and we have a makerspace that we created with the collaboration of a community in a youth center in an urban center in Montreal. And so we do a lot of activities in these different areas, you know, partially to help the community out and partially for research purposes, so that we know what worked, what didn't work, what, you know, we can improve for next time, that kind of thing. We had a mini maker fair actually a few years ago, or a couple of years ago, which I was the coordinator for, and we did at the university, and it was an amazing success. We had over 75 exhibitors and 4,000 participants. And so, you know, like we really try to make sure that what we're doing in terms of our making, it reaches the community and it's not just for research circles. So that's basically what I do at the university, which is a lot, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. If we have people, we might have some educators or parents who are not that familiar with like maker education and maker fairs. Could you explain a bit about like what is a maker fair, for example?
Sure. Well, it's basically where people who are not necessarily trained in fabrication and making create their own inventions or designs, and they come and share them. And a maker fair is basically this big kind of show and tell where people come, they show what they're doing, they share ideas with others. If they're having problems with a project, they can troubleshoot with each other. It's basically a really nice way to get together in person, which obviously is a bit of an issue with the pandemic, but is a nice way to get together in person rather than always staying apart, sharing by the internet, that kind of thing. So, you know, the internet is fantastic, and it's one of the main reasons why this maker movement is so successful. But it is also nice to, when possible, get together in person and actually share ideas in person. So hopefully we can get back to that soon, safely.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, you talk about like a lot of like maker activities and maker education. How did you get interested in learning through making?
Well, yeah, that's interesting. I'm an elementary school teacher, as we've mentioned, and I very much enjoy teaching younger children. I was asked to teach at the high school level because I have some expertise in mathematics teaching. So I was asked to teach at the high school level. And, you know, in elementary school, there's still quite a lot of creativity and creating and that kind of thing. But by the time you reach high school, oftentimes, unless a student is taking an elective course like art, they don't have a lot of opportunity to create and to make. Furthermore, I found that many of the students were complaining that what they're doing in school, they just don't see the relevance in real life. They don't see why should I be learning this math, or why should I be doing this? And I just realized, we need to be able to make that gap close that gap for them, help them to understand, help them to feel creative. I mean, kids, they have such great ideas, but so often they're told, oh, well, you'll be able to do that once you get to university. Oh, you'll be able to do that once you're an adult. And they get so discouraged, and I don't blame them. I really don't blame them. I was lucky as a teenager. I had other venues to make and create. But some of these kids, they don't have other venues. And I just realized, making would even help them, not just for their motivation and getting them involved in school, but it would also help them in terms of understanding concepts in school. So, in physics and chemistry, in physical science, in mathematics, for instance, a lot of the students don't understand some very, very basic principles. And I think it's because they just haven't had experiences with physical materials. So I think making can be very, very helpful for students, both motivationally and also in terms of understanding concepts.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, for example, if I think of my own like geometry courses, I always had to draw. If you have to count, like, what is the distance and how do you make? So I have to draw all the trees that you have to imagine there in the vision, and creating then and trying to maybe even build it on your table so you can then understand, what am I actually trying to measure here? What I'm trying to calculate? Yeah, I can understand that. And I think that's also like something concrete that you can then, it's not abstract, because mathematics can be a kind of then abstract.
It can be very abstract, and it's unfortunate because, in elementary school, we don't have problems with children using their fingers, with them using blocks and that kind of thing. But for some reason, the education system looks down on students in high school using these more concrete methods, which is really unfortunate because they can be very, very helpful. And if you actually look at, for instance, physicists and mathematicians, in their practice, they're using drawings a lot. They use drawings, they use physical, mock-ups, that kind of thing a lot. So, I question why we discourage it so much in high school when it can actually be so helpful for them.
Yeah, that's a good point. Do you have some example that you would like to share with us? Something you did with your students at the math class, or?
Well, for instance, I'm actually thinking about grade 6, which is the end of elementary school here in Quebec, Canada. Yeah. And they have exams that they have to pass to be able to get to high school. And a lot of them deal with geometry. And I remember one time, for instance, we were doing some practice exams, and there was a question that asked them to visualize, if you have a drill bit with a triangular bit on the end, and you drill into a piece of wood, what solid or what form would that create? And I would say about 95% of my class had no clue, absolutely no clue. And not because they weren't good at math, but because they had never used a drill, and they couldn't even imagine that. Mm-hmm. Another question that typically comes up is if, for instance, I have a cylinder and I need to figure out the area of the side of the cylinder. Kids have a very hard time understanding that until we do something concrete. For instance, taking a paint roller, and then you put some paint on it and you actually roll it out, and then they can actually measure the area, and then suddenly the lights come on. It makes sense to them. So a lot of the time I was doing projects like that with kids, to help them understand these geometric and these spatial reasoning concepts that just wasn't clear to them because they hadn't had the experiences.
Yeah, I can even remember that myself. That same thing, like you mentioned the cylinder, like, why is this so hard?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you've never had experience, how are you going to understand it, you know?
Yeah, some of them are there, like, what are the benefits of maker education, if you want to kind of have the
further
some key factors or key benefits? So.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are the two major streams of benefits or categories of benefits that I mentioned before. There's the benefit of the motivation. As a teacher, I would like to think that I have very good techniques for teaching mathematics, for instance. And no matter how much I improve those techniques, it did not help if the kids did not want to engage with the math. If they were either afraid of it or they didn't see its value, no matter how good I am at teaching it in terms of my techniques of conveying the information, they were not interested. And it wouldn't make a difference. So I realized I've got to motivate these kids. And kids, like, they are so often disempowered, particularly kids in poorer neighborhoods where they don't have opportunities to learn science, to get engaged in things like making if it's not done at school. And I just realized, like, if we can close that gap between their interests and what is done in school so that they can see the relevance and that they can appreciate the excitement of having that knowledge and being able to put it into practice, then that would be far better. So making is great for that because it really helps them feel like they've created something of their own. They're not just doing schoolwork, which is required of them, and it has to be the same as everybody else's. Like, they've created something of their own. It's their own personal expression, right? It's something that they've made, that they personalized, that came from them. And the other thing, as I mentioned before, is the conceptual connections that it can make. Taking this really sometimes dry theory that they don't see its relevance, they don't understand how it works, like I was saying with the drill bit and the paint roller, and actually making it visible for them, making it tangible for them so that they can understand these concepts better. So I would say those are the two streams or categories of the benefits of maker education.
Yeah, I agree. What about then now that you also mentioned, when you mentioned the Maker Faire before, that the interaction between students and teacher, the students collaborating together while they're making something, how is it now when we're all learning and working from home?
Yeah, that it's creating an interesting challenge for many teachers. We know, for instance, that inquiry-based learning, active learning, where students are actively involved and learning from the activity more than from a lecture, is way better for students. But a lot of teachers, for instance, don't know how to do that online. And there are definitely some limitations from doing it online. It's difficult for a teacher in a classroom to make sure that she or he checks in with all 30 students during an activity. Now, doing that online is a whole new challenge. So it's definitely a challenge. A lot of teachers are looking for online platforms that make it easier for students to record their process. Not necessarily video record, but they can take photographs, they can write journal entries, that kind of thing, so that if the teacher, which in most cases they can't, see the project while it's being done, they can at least see the process that the student took so that they can have a discussion with the student. Because a lot of the learning in making takes place during the discussion with students. Yes, students can and do learn concepts on their own through making, but it's not necessarily guaranteed. For instance, students can just use trial and error and actually happen to come across the right solution and it works, but they may not have any idea as to why, which is where the teacher is very, very important, because then the teacher now asks the deep questions, like, why do you think that happened? Why is it working now? What concepts did that touch on? So that the implicit knowledge that was touched on during the activity becomes explicit to the students, and that's the role of the teacher. So yeah, it is a challenge with the online learning. I think it can be done. I think with the right platforms we can do it. I do still think that in person is ideal and better, but given the circumstances, we need to work with the circumstances that we have, and I think we can accomplish it with time.
Yeah, and I think the students are also creative on their own, kind of figuring out different ways to then collaborate.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so much of their time and their world is spent online. So sometimes they're the more creative ones because they have more experience than we do as adults. So
more used to use all these different tools and multitask with them all at the same time. Even.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think in the article you also mentioned that sometimes, even if you have, as a teacher, if you have the answer, when they, like the students are trying to figure out something, you have the answer, you don't always tell that. You kind of try to figure out together with them in a way that you will also kind of be learning at the same time. So
yes, exactly. I mean, I think that the role as a teacher is changing in the sense that we are no longer the ones who have all the knowledge and we're imparting our knowledge to the students. We are now guides. So we need to teach people how to learn. It's no longer the case where you can enter a field coming out of school and retire in that same field 40 years, 45 years later with the same skills. We're going to have to be lifelong learners now. And we need to teach kids how to learn. So we need to model that process. They can only learn how to learn if we model that process, which is why even if I know the answer to a question, I don't just tell them. I will, go through them and say, okay, well, how would we look up the answer to this question? How would we find the answer to this question? How do we sift through the hundreds of articles online where, 70% of them could be not accurate.
Yeah.
So how do we sift through and make sure that we're reading it critically and think, okay, well, does this make sense what they're saying? And that kind of thing, so that they can learn to go through that process themselves without me being present. Because that's what I want in the end. I want them to be able to learn without me being present once they get out of my classroom.
Yeah, and I think especially now also, like, the media literacy is really important for you to understand, because they need to kind of search that information also on their own.
Exactly.
Especially you're maybe alone in front of the computer trying to figure out all this, going through the sources. So that's really important, I would say, especially now.
Absolutely.
When you're not at the classroom. But in the article, you also talk about the platform, an online platform that you're actually now designing to help teachers now that learning from home. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Well, I'm not actually in the process of designing it yet.
Okay.
I want to basically interview and collaborate with many different educators who are working with making in their classrooms, whether it be, like at a distance or in the actual school eventually. But I want to work with these various educators who have the experience to find out what would be ideal in one of these online platforms. And then eventually, once we do that, to create it. Right now, it's kind of a reactionary response in the sense that people are creating these online platforms because of the immediate need, which is great. It's better than nothing, absolutely. But I would like to know basically what would be the ideal online platform to be able to make teaching at a distance like this as effective as possible. So for instance, we know that feedback, immediate feedback, is particularly important. So how can we create an online platform that would allow a teacher to be able to give almost immediate feedback, or at least for the students to be able to receive almost immediate feedback, whether it be from the teacher or from peers or from people in the community, so that it can be most effective for them, right? So it's that kind of thing that I'm investigating and looking into so that we can create in the long run. I mean, this is obviously not going to address any immediate needs, but I think that this type of situation that we're in right now, and just the way our education system is shifting, online learning is going to become more and more of a prevalent context for learning. So in any case, I think it's going to be something that will be useful for everyone.
Yeah, and I think it's also good. It gives the freedom for you to, you don't have to try to go to the school that you have in your area. You can always kind of learn from all over the world, even if you want to.
Exactly.
So
and it may not be necessarily part of your formal education at school in your local area. It could just be something that you want to do independently, at a distance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even all the after schools and everything that you want to kind of learn. So for that,
exactly.
Yeah, it seems really good.
Yeah, sorry.
No, but I was thinking, like you said, you mentioned some of the, like, you want the immediate feedback, but you're now doing the investigation, you're interviewing people, kind of trying to figure out, and then the next step would be then design the platform, or
yes,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah, so we want it to basically be research based, so that hopefully it can be as effective as possible. We also want to talk to for instance, facilitators and makerspaces, and also makers, because they are very, very familiar with the making process. So they can also give us some feedback as to what types or what parts of the process would be good to document and record on one of these sites. Because making, in a lot of cases in education, we evaluate the final product. And the final product what demonstrates learning to the education system. But in making, it's the process that we're mostly interested in. So we want to find a way of documenting that process. If the final product doesn't work, that doesn't matter, as long as learning took place, right?
Yeah.
So as long as the student learns something, actually sometimes when a final product works, right away, it's actually too bad, because the student may not have learned that much from it. So it's really that process that we're interested in, and it's that process that we want to make sure that we are able to document, so that teachers can take advantage of that for learning purposes.
Yeah, I would say also, like, if you create even like an Arduino project, if you do it the correct way immediately, you don't learn as much when you have all these issues with your wiring or with the code. You learn a lot more when you have to do some troubleshooting. Yeah,
absolutely. Exactly.
We had also one of your projects here. Roxanne, I can share the screen if you want to tell us a bit about this project.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it was unfortunately, because of the pandemic, all of my projects are currently at the university, which I cannot access. And so we had our own post Arduino Day celebration. And so I threw this little project together. And what I wanted to do with this project was demonstrate that you can do something quite fun with very simple electronics and very simple coding. And B, you can incorporate aesthetic elements. A lot of girls in particular, and some boys, are not necessarily interested in robotics, which is often the kind of the first thing that schools go to when they're starting making in a school. And, a lot of them aren't necessarily interested in robotics, and they're not interested in competitions. They want to do something more aesthetically pleasing. They want to do something more collaborative. So this is just a really simple little nightlight. The moon there on the left side of the screen under the planet has a little light sensor under it. So when the lights go dim in the surrounding environment, the little stars and the spaceship light up. And then obviously when light is shone onto the light sensor, they go off. And it's really fun. This is actually sewn with conductive thread. It's a lot of fun to do. It's something that parents can do with younger children. So to do it with them, and they can start learning about basic circuits. And it's something that a slightly older child can do on their own. So I think it's just a little fun thing. I mean, it's nothing serious, but it's nice to show that aesthetic side of it, because that often gets forgotten in making, and I think that it just encourages kids who are more interested in the aesthetic elements from participating in making, which is unfortunate, because I think everybody should be interested in making.
Yeah, and definitely, I would say also that you can combine this like with the arts class, for example. So you don't have to be a technology teacher or a math teacher. You can combine these kind of projects with all different kinds of subjects.
Absolutely, and I mean the maker community is so wonderful. I mean, they're so open and they share. So if you're not an expert in making, or if you have no idea how an Arduino works, you can go to the maker community and they will offer you so much advice and support. It's really more possible now than it has ever been in the past.
Yeah,
to do this kind of thing in the classroom.
Actually, my last question was: do you have any advice for educators who are interested in kind of maker activities or having this kind of learning through making in their classes?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the number one thing that I would recommend is not to be too intimidated by it. If you don't know anything about it, learning it with the students can be great. And as we were just saying, even when there's a problem with the equipment, that's not necessarily a problem. That can be an excellent teaching opportunity, because you're going through the problem solving, the troubleshooting with the students, and they often come up with great ideas. They really do. And so you can talk about how the technology works, how it should work, why it's not working, what could possibly be the problem. So you're basically showing them how to troubleshoot with them. The other thing is I actually find it creates a closer relationship with my students because they realize that I'm not perfect. I don't know everything, and that's okay. And they don't have to either. The point is to learn. The point is to improve. So don't come in, you know, I don't want the students coming in intimidated either. I want them to know it's okay not to know, and we're going to figure this out together. And again, draw on that maker community. It's such a huge community. The people are really, for the most part, I find really willing to help. They're not laughing at people who don't know things, you know. They're really more than willing to help. So go to the community, find a good group on Facebook or something like that, and they can be really, really helpful.
Yeah, I agree. I like that there's no stupid questions kind of thinking.
Absolutely,
I think it's really good that students also learn that it's okay to have questions, or you don't always have to have the right answer if teacher is asking something. So
absolutely,
I think that's really good. There was a question from our audience, like okay, I learned to speak at the same time. How has COVID impacted makerspaces? How can we use project-based learning in the distance environment? We talked about that a bit also, but have you had any remote makerspaces, for example, now?
Well, interestingly, every week what we usually do in our team, Education Makers, we usually have a Maker Jam every week where we get together. It's a wonderful time because we get to create together. We have our own projects usually, but then we get in one room and we make. And we haven't been able to do that in person, but we've actually been doing that online. So we're still at home, we're still making our own thing, but we're collaborating online. And I think a lot of makerspaces have had to do that. I've seen examples of makerspaces where, for instance, they're loaning out their equipment, obviously equipment that can be moved, and to people who have the appropriate training so that they don't hurt themselves or damage the equipment. So I think that's something that a lot of makerspaces have been doing as well. Many of them have actually been dedicating their equipment, and obviously the directors of the makerspace or those responsible for the makerspaces have been going in and making sure that they stay safe, but so that they can create masks. Yeah. So there's a lot of people who are sewing cloth masks. There are a lot of people who are 3D printing masks with filters. So many of the makerspaces are dedicating themselves to that because of the shortage in mass production from the industry.
Yeah. So learning also new kinds of skills and creating something new. Yeah.
And as always, being creative as makers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Being creative in a kind of new area that you haven't thought about maybe even before.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Exactly.
There was another one from Audric. What is your discipline? Is it in electrical engineering or computer science?
Oh, no, I'm actually in education. So I'm in educational technology. So basically, educational technology, yes, it looks at digital technology, but we're also looking at teaching techniques and learning approaches, that kind of thing, in industry. So actually learning how adults learn and learning through industry and for industry purposes, but also in my case, for instance, how we can improve the formal education system. So yeah, no, I'm in education. Everything that I've learned about Arduino and all of this and that, I've learned on my own. No formal training.
Okay, well, that's nice. I think that was it for this time. You can find our interview from our remote learning site. So all you watching this, if you want to know more about Nathalie, go to arduino.cc/remote learning. You can find the article from there. Thank you. This was really interesting. It was so nice to have you here.
It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
And next, we're going to have Therese.
Hi, I'm back.
Yay.
Let me know if my sound is not too loud, because I've got some feedback from the green room that it's not working. So
I think it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So that was super nice. And I like the sewing project that they had done, because it reminded me of when I was young. We had sewing class. In Sweden, it's actually mandatory to have sewing classes when you're in elementary school. You also have that in Finland.
Yeah, we do.
We have like sewing and wood shop both. So that would be a really nice idea to have in the sewing classes.
Yeah, definitely. Would be more interesting. I was not that good.
Not me neither. I was actually kind of good at wood shop, but it was like when I was younger, it was not okay for a girl to like the wood shop. So yeah, you would have to say that you like the sewing class more than the wood shop. So it was kind of sad.
Okay.
But now that if we can have something cool in the sewing classes, like robotics, that would be nice.
Definitely.
So about something else, as you have seen in the previous.
Also for the elementary students, though.
Yeah, of course. Regarding elementary school, you've seen that we've talked about the student kits, which is aimed for middle school. It's the educational product where middle school students can learn robotics, electronics, and programming. So in the student kit, we have 9 lessons, and I think there's 2 projects, right? Main projects after the 9 lessons. And you can learn more about the kits in our remote learning website. What I was going to talk about was that we actually had a question from the form. Oh, yes. Yeah, here we have it. So we had a question from Poppy regarding the student kit, and she's asking if you can have a bulk discount, because now the student kit is an individual kit. Before, when you used to have the classroom kits, you didn't really need the bulk discount because you'll get 1 or 2 for your classes. But now, since it's a single kit, we have introduced a bulk discount. If you're purchasing as an educational institution, you get 10% off all of our educational products. But if you purchase as a private person or a company, you also get 10% off if you buy 17 or more. So that's good to know if you want to buy for your class or for multiple kids.
Yeah, and of course, we recommend you to contact your local distributor to purchase our kits. You can find the list of educational distributors from our remote learning site and from the Arduino store. So you can always find that first if you have a local distributor, or if not, then you can use, of course, the Arduino store too.
Exactly. So today we actually have a parent with us that has been using the student kit together with his kids. We also have his wife here. So now I'm going to present Maurizio Branca. Maurizio, where are you? Hi.
Hello. Hi.
Hello. So Maurizio and your whole family, maybe your wife's name is Simone. Simone, is that your name?
Yes.
Yes. Hi, Simone, Maurizio, and your kids' names?
Yeah. He is Tommaso. He is 10 years old. And he is Filippo. He is 8.
Hi. Hi. Nice to meet you. This is super nice.
As Italian, bring our family.
Okay, that is fine. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about your situation, like regarding work. Are you all at home, or is anyone at school, or is everyone remote?
Yeah, I'm working remotely since late February, early March. So we are all together at home. The kids also started to bring remote lesson with their school. So we try to find a new balance here. So until a couple of weeks ago, in the morning they were busy with the homework, with some remote lesson. But in the last week, the lesson has ended. So we need to find some way to spend the morning with something useful. So not just watching TV, or because usually in the last weeks rained a lot, so we can't spend the entire day playing Fortnite. So we devoted the morning to education. So we started as the student kit. This is a family effort because we are all together in this, because I work for Arduino, but I work on the cloud stuff. So I'm a software developer. So I'm not involved directly with hardware. I just work on the cloud. So for me, it's just a normal parent with a software development background. So we have started to do the kit. The kit has a first part made of 2 or 3 lessons where you build the basics about the history of computing, about the electricity basics, and then you build on this. We are done a couple of projects, and we are enjoying a lot.
That's nice. So are you both of the parents are teaching the kids?
Yeah. I started first because I had a little bit experience due to maybe I need to test some cloud stuff using some boards, so I have more practice. But in the last couple of days, my wife joined, and because he had some spare time, and she worked with Tommaso they walk through the theoretical part, and then they are starting to build some projects.
Okay, that's nice. Simone, what is your background?
I'm also a software engineer,
Okay.
and I work in a tourism field. I was in charge of the traffic light project with Tommaso.
Okay.
And it was my first project on Arduino Student Kit. It was very interesting and a good way to spend time with my child. I think he is enjoying a lot, and he's thinking to also teach to Filippo what he has learned until now. So the next step for a holiday time is for them to spend the morning on the student kit, and maybe also with Tommaso teaching what he has learned to Filippo.
Yeah, we are building another teacher here, a small teacher.
That is super nice. So
Simona also has a degree in chemistry, so this helps a lot with the chemistry background. So when we talk about the battery and the atoms, so she's in charge of this part. So because
it's a good way to refresh knowledge from university time, from subject which I'm not using anymore.
Oh, that's great. So kids are usually like that. They want to know everything, even on the atom level, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Tommaso, when we started with the theory about electricity circuit and battery, he made a lot of questions, and so Maurizio and I spent time Googling answers to his question about batteries and other stuff we don't know very well.
Yeah, because you don't need to go this deep, but he got interesting some mechanism. He want to know how things works. So we keep go deeper and deeper and deeper about the electron. Why this material? Why the current flows in this material and this other material doesn't flow? What is the reason? So we need to go deeper and deeper, because he got very, very interested in this part.
Curious. So, that is nice. So
the student kit is a good starting point to deeper on the subject. It stimulates questions and understanding of how things works.
Yeah, you don't have to, but if the kid is interested, you can start a journey. Maybe we start with a half an hour on the kit, and then spend maybe 45 minutes going deeper on some details, because he was interested. So it's really fun.
It's a nice way to kind of see what other subjects your kid is interested in by doing like one lesson, and then you see what you can branch into. Maybe I can ask Tommaso and Filippo, what do you think about learning with the student kids?
Cosa ne pensi di imparare con lo student kit? Divertente.
Come si dice? Prova a dirlo in inglese. Quello che mi hai detto prima.
Funny.
Funny. That's great.
It's
That's
also a way to improve his English because he's getting used to read English explanations clearly with our support, because he's learning English at the very basic level now.
Yeah, I remember when I started learning English, it was because I want to play games. So back in the day, in the 90s, games were not translated in your language. So you have to pick the dictionary and then figure it out what the heck the games was saying. So I love text adventure. So this is that was a nice thing. So I see the same thing about this on him.
That's great. Yeah, I also recognize that from when I was younger and playing games. So you had to learn English to understand the other people you were playing with and to read the directions. Do you have any tips on how to balance work life and teaching your kids from home? Since I guess everything can be quite mixed up when you're all under the same roof. And we spend some time trying different approaches here. The best thing the best strategy was to carve out some time in the day for some activities. So they start in the morning with the homework, and then at a certain time we start to stop working and then help them check the homework, and then because otherwise the things were too messy. So time management is important then.
Yeah, schedule time, block some time in the calendar for such activities.
It was very difficult for us to, in this COVID period, to make them understand that it was not just an holiday, but they had to spend time learning, and the absence of school was a problem. So at the beginning, it was very challenging for us to.
We've tried to turn a problem into an opportunity to build something useful. I think we have nailed it.
Yeah, it sounds like that. Yeah, because it can be very difficult to explain to your kids why you're suddenly only at home. There is also this question from Michael: how do you keep your kids motivated to complete the Arduino lessons while you're not available? Do you have any?
Usually we need to find something that is playful. So we are now completing this is a very simple project. It's one of the first ones. So it's a simple traffic signal. So you can build it. This is the standard project in the kit, but Tommaso earlier was thinking about what if I build some panel to put in front of that with holes for the lights and bring a case. So usually motivation keep strong if you can if he can build something on their own. I was listening about the previous guest, so I totally agree on the fact that you need to build a context where the kid can try and fail on its own, and try again later. And this is this is a very, very effective technique. So I totally agree what Nathalie was saying. It's also myself, when usually I have the answer about a specific connection that is not made perfectly, or something in the sketch, but usually we let him try the wrong version, fail, and try to troubleshoot, help with the troubleshooting, but not find a solution. This is I totally agree. This is very, very important.
The approach we are following, since they don't speak English, they can't do new lesson on their own. So we started doing a lesson together, and in a natural way, they are curious to experiment different paths on the same lesson. So in the traffic light project, we started with the basic path, but Tommaso wants to experiment new paths on his own. So I think the curiosity is the engine in this case.
So you can kind of give them a simpler task to continue with after you've helped them with the basics, so they can continue on their own. That's very nice. Yeah. Do you have any other like tips and tricks on teaching and from home to our audience?
From home, no. Probably, I don't know.
Let them, I think it is very useful. At the beginning, my attitude was to make things in but make things and not let him do it. But the best approach is, I think, it's let the kid write code directly. Yeah. Build the circuit, trying to do by his own, and as Maurizio told before, let him fail, not to prevent the errors, which was at the beginning it was difficult for me to be silent when I was seeing that there was a mistake on the code. At the beginning, I was telling him, no, look carefully. There is a problem there, but it is better to let him fail and try to troubleshoot by his own the error. It to learn.
Yeah, so that's a great tip.
Yeah, the tip is to let them put the hand on the work directly.
So then we have let them try by themselves and let them fail. Also, time management is very important, right? And then give the kids like a simpler task to continue by themselves when you're using your time for something else. So I think those are really good tips. Thanks a lot. I think this is all for our interview. Thank you, Maurizio, Simone, Tommaso, and Filippo.
Filippo.
Ciao.
Hi.
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 Bye.
Bye.
So we're saying goodbye now.
Yeah. He's not into electronic. He wants to start a bakery.
Oh, you can do that too. They can have a collaboration. An automatic bakery.
I was telling he should build something to start his enterprise.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so thanks a lot, guys. Hope to see you again soon. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, that was super nice.
That was nice.
Wow.
I have already ideas for the bakery. How you can have a counter for visitors. You can have a screen for your own commercials. So if interested, I can start making with you.
Yeah. I just have one comment, which is that it's super nice that they can practice their English using this kit, but also the Italian version will be available.
Exactly.
This year. So no worries if your kids don't know English, because we will expand it to multiple languages. Right now, I think it's English and Spanish.
English. Exactly. Great interview, Teres. Great interview, Melissa. Super interesting.
I think it's actually time for the quiz, right?
Yes, quiz time.
Let me just share my screen. I'm sorry for all the noise. I think it's from me. There's a lot of traffic. Yep. So as usual, we have a quiz. So we're having this quiz because we want to show you how you can kind of quiz your students remotely, or your children if you want to use something like this. We're using Menti, but you can use whichever. So please, everyone, participate in this quiz. Take your smartphone, go to menti.com and use the code 9214 and 96.
So Nathalie and Mauricio, you can also try this.
And Maurizio's whole family.
Yeah, exactly.
So everyone in the chat, or everyone who's watching, use your phone and go to menti.com.
Yes, and don't just type the code that you see there on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. 92, 14, 96.
I'll wait for a while so that you all
Quiz
have time
time.
to grab your phones.
Yes.
So I
Cody,
can
perfect.
start to, let's see if I can move it here. Yeah, I can tell you that this quiz will, as usual, be a little bit about what we've been talking about here. For example, the student kits, or maybe what the guests have been saying, or some questions about electronics and programming.
So they need to be super fast when they
Exactly.
answer.
When you answer, if you answer fast, you get more points.
Exactly. So be fast. Okay, yeah, people are joining.
So let's start.
Yep. Woo. Good luck to everyone.
Good luck to everyone. Let's just see if I can do this. I'm thinking I'm doing this right. Yeah, we have some players. Nice.
Perfect.
So we've talked about the student kit, right? My first question will, as usually, be a little bit easier so that everyone can feel that they're involved. Which languages, or which language, these are the student kits currently available in? So this is when you go to your phone and you press the right answer. It will appear on your phone. And if you haven't been in this quiz before, I can tell you also that there can be a bit of a delay. So if you experience that everything is not in sync of what I'm saying and what you're seeing in your phone, is because of the broadcast delay. This will also be visible for everyone who's going to watch this later, that there's a bit of a delay. But everyone are still in, so don't worry. So the student kit is currently available in English and Spanish. But as I said before, it will also be available in Italian later, and multiple other languages. I think Melissa left us. She's still here. No, she's still here.
Question number 2.
Yes. So speaking of Italian, we had our previous guest was Maurizio and his family. We also had another guest, which was Nathalie, who is a researcher. But at which university is Nathalie a researcher at?
I'm back. I had some issues with my internet for a moment. But I've been doing the quiz.
Oh, so that's nice.
Which university?
What universities did you study?
Me? I studied at Lund University. It's close to Malmö.
Okay. What subject?
I was studying master in mechanical engineering. What did you study, Melissa?
I've studied in Finland and also in Sweden. I've studied computer science and media technology and interactive technology.
Oh, wow. Cool. And you studied at Malmö, right?
Yeah, master's in Malmö and then bachelor's in Finland at Tampere.
Oh, we have a little more. Puggy is currently the fastest with 1,867 points.
Wow.
But everything can change. We still have 3 more questions, and these will be a bit more techy. So, another way of learning from home is to watch our tutorial videos for the starter kit. And the most recent video was the motorized pinwheel. So in this video, you will learn how to use a DC motor. And if you have already watched it, you might know the answer to this question. Why is a diode needed when using a DC motor in a circuit with other components? Answer on your phones.
And for people, I just got kicked out from the quiz, but you can still always join using the same code, and then you can continue from where you were. So no worries if that happens to you.
That's good to know. So why is a diode needed? A bit more difficult.
Ooh, that was a tricky one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the answer is actually to lead away back voltage, since the DC motor is an inductive device. So whenever you stop the voltage to it, it will actually create some voltage itself, but in the wrong direction. So you put in a diode, but flip the direction of the diode so that whenever that extra voltage is created, it will go through only the diode, but not the rest of the circuits. If you want to know more, you know which video you should look at. And in this video, we will also show you that you will need a transistor. So the question is, of course, what is the function of a transistor in a circuit with a DC motor like this?
Yeah, this is the first project where you need DC motor in the starter kit, so you learn how to control it. But we will use it also in the next week's project.
Let's see. I'm just gonna... This was difficult as well, but it is turning the motor on and off. And I actually think in the next episode, we're not using either a transistor or a diode, because we will use another component that will have transistors and diodes inside it.
Yes, we're going to use the H-bridge.
Exactly. So tune in next week to see that.
Yeah.
So the last question will be, what are the names of the terminals in the transistor? See if you know that.
Yeah, and you can share also, while waiting for other people to answer, you can share in the comments what, if you're using some of the quiz tools with your students, for example. We would like to know what tools you're using and for what subjects you're using quizzes, for example. Or maybe you have created your own Arduino quiz. You can share it with us, and maybe we can have that quiz instead.
That would be nice. Let's look at the results.
Yeah, I feel like I also learn always when we're filming the starter kit projects. Like Therese is always explaining a lot of the things.
Oh, we're pretty good at this one. Gate, drain, and source. You can be a bit tricked because I put the terminals of other components like LEDs. So that has the anode and the cathode. Right. So actually, that was the last one. So we should have a winner.
Dun, dun, dun. Ah,
Maurizio's there. Oh, Melissa's also there, but then we have another. Melissa, you're the winner.
For
Congratulations.
the first time.
We also had Edu and Maru, Dean, Puggy. We had Maurizio, NHD, and some other players. Thank you all for participating. Melissa, this is your first win. How does it feel?
Good. I'm so excited.
Yeah. No, but as someone mentioned before, when we're creating these videos, I also learn a lot that I've been forgetting. So always good. Okay.
I want to take a picture of our show so I can share
do
it
that
on your social media.
Yeah, I'm gonna use it.
Please do that.
Awesome.
All right.
That was it for today. Yes.
Yeah, now after this live, you can go to our remote learning site, arduino.cc/remote learning. There's 2 new articles, the one that I mentioned already, the interview with Nathalie Duponsel, and then we have another article about, is homeschooling part of the future of education? We don't know, but you can, of course, go to, for example, to our Arduino forum and start a discussion about the topic and have some discussion with other educators. What do you think? Is this our future of education? Are we going to do it all from home?
Yeah, we want to listen to you. But thank you so much for joining today. And thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Therese, and also Nathalie and Mauricio's family. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
And see you next Thursday at 4.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.